All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to do a real deep dive, a masterclass, if you will. We're going to cover the complete story of hypothyroidism, from the very basics of what it is, all the way to the nuances of how we treat it today. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We've broken it down into 5 key chapters. We'll start with defining the condition, then get into the biology behind it, how it actually shows up in people, the risks if you don't treat it, and finally, how we manage the whole thing. Nice and logical. All right, let's jump right into chapter 1, defining the condition. Before we can talk about anything else, we have to get our definition straight. We need to establish a clear biochemical blueprint because honestly, everything, diagnosis, treatment, all of it, really hinges on getting these fundamental distinctions right. So first up is primary hypothyroidism. This is the one you hear about most often. It's the classic case, making up more than 95% of all diagnoses. The key word here is primary. What that means is the problem is in the thyroid gland itself. It's just not making enough hormone anymore. And the lab results? They're crystal clear. The hormone level is low, and another signal, TSH, is screaming high, trying to get it to work. Okay, but then there's this other state which is really fascinating, subclinical hypothyroidism. Think of this like the check engine light in your car. Your body's pituitary gland knows something's up, so it's working overtime, shouting louder by pumping out more TSH to get the thyroid to do its job. And for a little while, it works. The thyroid manages to keep hormone levels in the normal range. But that high TSH, that's the smoke signal. It's the key sign that the system is under strain and a bigger problem is on the horizon. So if we put it all together, here's the key takeaway. In both cases, the TSH is high. That's the first thing you see. But the real difference maker is the free T4 hormone level. If it's low, that means the thyroid has already failed. That's primary hypothyroidism. But if that T4 level is still normal, it means the body is just compensating for a struggling gland. And that's subclinical. It's just one number, but it tells you whether you're looking at a compensated problem or a full-blown disease. Okay, that brings us right into our second chapter, the biological mechanism. We've seen what the lab numbers are, but now we need to understand why they are what they are. So let's dig into the biology here and see the chain reaction that's actually causing all of this. This really shows the core of the problem perfectly. It's all about a broken feedback loop. See, your pituitary gland is like the body's thermostat or control center. It senses that hormone levels are low, so it sends out a signal, that's TSH, basically yelling, hey, make more hormone. Now, in a healthy person, the thyroid gets the message and gets to work. But with primary hypothyroidism, the thyroid is the broken part. It just can't respond to the signal. So what does the pituitary do? It just keeps shouting louder and louder. And that's why your TSH level stays so high. So knowing that this feedback loop is broken inside the body, that leads us to the next logical question in Chapter 3. How does this all actually feel? How does it show up in a person? Let's talk about diagnosis and how we spot a condition that is frankly notorious for hiding in plain sight. And right away, we hit a huge challenge. The symptoms are, well, they're all over the place. And they're often really vague. It's so easy to just chalk them up to, getting older or being stressed out or a million other things. It really is a clinical chameleon. I mean, just look at this list. You've got things that affect your whole body, like feeling tired all the time or being cold. Then you have physical changes, like your skin or your hair. And it can even affect your mind, your mood, your memory. It really hits you from all angles. And this is exactly why just going by symptoms alone is a terrible idea. It's just not reliable. And that's precisely why, even with all these potential symptoms, it all comes back to one simple objective blood test, TSH. That number cuts right through all the confusing, nonspecific feelings and gives us a clear, direct look at what that biological feedback loop is actually doing. Okay, this next part is absolutely critical. Chapter 4 is all about the risks and long-term complications. Because before we even start talking about fixing the problem, we have to understand the stakes. What happens if you just don't do anything? This is where we establish why treatment isn't just an option, it's a necessity. Yeah, this is the question that turns a number on a lab report into a serious, long-term health risk with consequences that affect your whole body. And here's something you really need to get. The risk isn't just from not enough treatment. It's a Goldilocks situation. If you undertreat it, the body's metabolism stays slow, and that causes damage over time. But if you overtreat it, give too much hormone, that's dangerous too, creating a whole different set of problems. Either way, too little or too much, you're looking at major long-term risks, especially to your heart and your bones. And the evidence here is, well, it's pretty sobering. When your thyroid levels are out of whack, the data links it directly to some really serious stuff. For instance, not treating it can drive up your bad cholesterol, clog your arteries, and raise your risk for a heart attack. On the flip side, taking too much medication can trigger an irregular heartbeat, like AFib, and it can weaken your bones. This is why getting the treatment just right isn't just about feeling less tired. It's about preventing things that can fundamentally change your life. Okay, so now that we've laid out just how serious the risks are, let's talk about the solution. This brings us to Chapter 5, Treatment and Management. The whole goal here is simple. Restore that hormonal balance with precision, specifically to stop those nasty long-term complications in their tracks.
So how do we do it? Well, for a very long time, the gold standard of treatment has been a medication called levothyroxine, or LT4. All it is really is a man-made version of the exact same T4 hormone your thyroid is supposed to be making. It works well, it's safe, and you only have to take it once a day, which makes it pretty straightforward and reliable.
But, and this is a big but, it's not quite as simple as just popping a pill every morning. Levothyroxine is famous for being really, really picky. All sorts of common things can mess with how your body absorbs it. Your morning coffee, calcium or iron pills, even a high-fiber breakfast can literally grab onto the medicine in your gut and stop you from absorbing it. And then you have other meds, like common heartburn pills that change your stomach acid, which the tablet needs to dissolve in the first place. And this is where modern treatment gets interesting. See, the standard pill needs that acidic stomach to work right. But now we have newer forms, like liquids and soft gels. The big difference? The hormone is already dissolved, so it doesn't really care about your stomach acid as much. This is a game changer for people who have stomach issues, take heartburn meds, or who just can't seem to get their TSH levels stable even when they're taking their pill perfectly. This timeline really drives home a key point. Managing hypothyroidism is an ongoing process. It is absolutely not a set it and forget it kind of deal. Anytime you start or change a dose, you check the TSH in about 6 to 8 weeks. Once you've hit that sweet spot, you check again a few months later just to make sure it's holding steady. And after that, it's usually once a year. It's this constant cycle of checking in and tweaking things to make sure you stay in that safe and effective zone. So at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve? The official goal, what all the guidelines say, is to get that TSH level back into the normal range. Remember how a high TSH was the main red flag that something was wrong? Well, getting it back down is the main sign that we're doing things right. It tells us we've successfully replaced the missing hormone and fixed that broken feedback loop. But that brings us to our final and maybe most important question. The lab report gives us a big normal range for TSH. But just because you're in that range, does that mean you're at the optimal level for you as an individual? Is normal good enough? Or should we be fine-tuning the treatment to find the exact spot within that range where a person truly feels their best, with no leftover symptoms? That's the big conversation happening right now in thyroid care, and it's where the science is headed next.